Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, you're checking out an updated solo hybrid Nightblade build for the Elder Scrolls Online. That's right, the Catalyst build is back and updated for the Markarth DLC, and it is stronger than ever. This is a combination dual wield and Inferno Staff build, and a variety of Nightblade skills, both stamina and magicka, for an extremely fun and powerful playstyle. And there's many cool additions available for this build now in Markarth, including maybe a couple mythic items. We'll talk about the basic setup first, and then how you can make that even stronger, including the gear sets, skill options, champion points, and everything else you need to make it work. And that's all coming up next. All right, everybody, here we are back on the Nightblade, this time with an update to our solo hybrid Nightblade build. This is called the Catalyst. We're going to be combining dual wield on the front bar with destruction staff back bar with, of course, our Nightblade class skills. A combination of stamina and magicka abilities, so really unique, fun play style. Definitely not the meta, so be prepared for that. Let's go ahead and jump into the buff stats on the build. Take a look at our potion. And here we go, 25,000 max magicka, 24,000 max health, and 25,000 max stamina. Pretty even split on the hybrid setup. About 900 magicka and stamina recovery, 1,400 health recovery. Spell and weapon damage are about equal, sitting at about 26 to 2,700. Now that actually goes over 4,000, closer to 4.5, 4.6k with everything fully buffed on this setup. We'll talk about those procs in just a minute. About 30% weapon and spell critical. This is a heavy armor setup, by the way. I forgot to mention that. So your crit will be slightly lower. And then as far as the resistances, yes, they do go up with a shadow ability. So it's about 22,000 spell and physical resist. Even split in terms of attribute points, 32 magicka, 32 stamina. We're running the Bewitched Sugar Skulls, the gold food. This is ideal for a hybrid because it gives you everything, health, stamina, magicka. It also gives you health recovery, which is really nice. The Thief Mundus Stone, this is a great option now for hybrids because it buffs both weapon and spell critical. So basically any damage source you have on the build will have extra crit chance thanks to this Mundus. I do like it a lot. Now in terms of the race, we're going full on hybrid for this one, you guys, and that's where we're using the Dark Elf. Dark Elf is the hybrid race. Probably the best option for hybrids. For a true hybrid build that is, equal distribution of like stamina, magicka, spell damage, weapon damage. Due to the Dark Elf passives, let's check it out. Dynamic gives you max magicka and max stamina, 1875 of both. Resist Flame, just some extra flame resistance, that's not bad. But then check out this passive. Ruination gives you both weapon and spell damage increased by 258, which is going to be very nice on this setup. Now obviously this isn't a meta build. You can make any race work that you would like, but I think Dark Elf is probably the ideal for this one. For those potions, Tri-Stat potions will be your best option, though you can honestly just use like basic trash potions, magicka, stamina, even a health potion. We're going to be chugging potions a lot on the Catalyst build. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So you definitely want to pick up a few trash potions just for when you need something basic to fill up your proc. Now, speaking of those procs, how does that work in terms of the sets? Well, let's check it out. First, on the front bar, running New Moon Acolyte. Dual wield here, so I've got two swords. Nerdhoned on the main hand sword, sharpened for the offhand sword of the New Moon Acolyte set, and then I'll have 3 pieces on the body. In terms of what New Moon Acolyte can do, it's actually a perfect hybrid set as well. Gives you weapon and spell critical, weapon and spell damage, physical and spell penetration, weapon and spell damage. Yeah, doesn't get much better than that. You do have a slight increase of cost, but that's not that bad considering we're basically pulling from 2 resource pools, so the sustain still is pretty good on this setup. Why swords? Why not daggers? Something like that. Well, swords are actually the only dual wield weapon which will buff both stamina based and magicka based skills. That's because in the dual wield passives, swords increase all of your overall damage from any source. So using the dual wield swords, that's going to be your best option. And then in terms of those body pieces, New Moon Acolyte on the chest. Again, we're doing a heavy armor setup on this build. Kind of unique. I think heavy armor works really well with Nightblades. So heavy chest in Divines, heavy legs, heavy feet. All New Moon Acolyte heavy. with Divines as the trait. We're doing Stamina enchants on the big pieces, Magicka enchants on the small pieces. You can, of course, use Tri-Stat enchants if you want, if you have the money to burn. But we have plenty of health on this build already. So you'll find that the Tri-Stat glyphs are really necessary. Now, for the second 5-piece set, let's talk about Clever Alchemist. Clever Alchemist gives you 2 max health bonuses, a weapon and spell damage bonus. And when you drink a potion during combat, you increase your weapon and spell damage by 675 for 20 seconds. That's a huge buff. This is also going to scale up with Major Sorcery and Major Brutality, meaning you get a lot of weapon and spell damage when you have your potion up. Now, the cooldown here is important. 20 seconds is a pretty short cooldown. Most of you probably know that the potion cooldown, just by default, that's 45 seconds. So really what we needed to do on this build was reduce our own internal cooldown of potions, and that's why we're going to use the Reduce Cooldown glyph. It's called Alchemical Acceleration, and we're using that on all 3 pieces of jewelry. So with an infused trait, that reduces your cooldown on potions by 8 seconds. 8 times 3 pieces, we're going to cut off 24 seconds out of the 45. So do the math really quick. You'll be able to reuse your potions every 21 seconds. That means you'll almost have like, what, 95, 96% uptime on Clever Alchemist. I'm not good at math. But basically, we've got it as close to the cooldown as possible, making that Clever Alchemist proc up as much as possible. This is another crafted set, by the way. All crafted sets, except for the monster set on this setup. The basic setup for this is going to be 3 pieces of jewelry, so Clever Alchemist necklace and 2 rings, and then 2 pieces on the body. So Clever Alchemist waist and Clever Alchemist gloves. That gives you 2 pieces on the body, 3 pieces of jewelry. That's your 5-piece set, and you can proc that Clever Alchemist no matter if you're on the front bar or the back bar. That's the very basic setup. With that setup, you'll be able to run any back bar weapon you want. Doesn't even have to be a Clever Alchemist staff. It could be a Maelstrom staff. It could be any crafted staff that you want, as long as it's infused with the weapon and spell damage enchant there on the back bar. You can see that gives us even more weapon and spell damage. So that's really important. Now, for the more advanced setup, we're going to actually use Clever Alchemist on the back bar with an Inferno staff. This means I can only use my potion on the back bar. If I use my potion on my front bar, I won't get the Clever Alchemist buff. So this is the more advanced setup. But let me show you why this is really nice, especially for soloing. If you have a Clever Alchemist staff on the back bar, if you have 1 piece on the body, I'm using Clever Alchemist waist, and if I have 2 pieces of jewelry, I now have an extra slot where I can run a mythic item. There's a couple of mythic items which are very strong on this setup. Number 1, obviously Ring of the Pale Order, which is what I have equipped right now. This gives you lots and lots of extra health back every time you do damage. So this is a very strong option. Now remember, this is a heavy armor build as well. Our crit is pretty low, so you could actually also run Malakath's Band of Brutality as another mythic option. Remember, you can only have 1 mythic equipped at a time, so you'll have to use either one. Right now, I'm preferring a Ring of the Pale Order, like I said, but Malakath, also another option. Now, finally, if you do that, you will free up another slot again for back bar and Clever Alchemist. We have 1 extra free slot, so that's going to be our gloves. I just put on 1 piece of Armor of the Trainee. This is really nice now. It does give you a 1-piece bonus. It never used to do that. 1454 max health. It's actually really strong. So that's what I would recommend doing if you want to use the mythic build. Finally, let's talk about the monster set. 2 really good options, I think. Number 1, if you want more damage, pick up Balorgh. Balorgh gives you weapon and spell damage, so it's actually a good hybrid set. And when you use your ultimate, you gain weapon and spell damage equal to the ultimate that you consumed and physical and spell penetration. Now, this is unbelievably strong on this build. This is actually a new addition. On the Nightblade, we get 20 extra ultimate every time we use a potion. Of course, we're going to have that every 20 seconds or so. We also have one of the lowest costing ultimates in the game from the Assassination skill line. So we'll be having this proc from Balorgh up quite consistently. And it does have a 12-second duration too. So this is a really nice buff on this build to increase your damage. Now, if you want greater survivability, the other option, which I really like still, is going to be Ice Heart. Ice Heart, 2 pieces there, will give you extra spell critical, which is not bad, and then a free damage shield every time you do critical damage. If you're doing the Malakath mythic, you cannot use this, so use Balorgh instead. And Balorgh's going to be a better option for damage anyways. So that's the setup. Again, 5 pieces of heavy on this setup. So we've got the heavy helmet and shoulder for the monster set. That's going to be very important. And then heavy chest, heavy legs and feet. That's going to be our 5 pieces of heavy. Medium hands, light waist. That's how we get the 5-1-1. Again, max stamina enchants on the big pieces, magicka on the small pieces, and then divines on everything. That'll be your best in-slot trait. All right, that covers all the gear. Let's talk about skills next. Front bar, dual wield. We have our Execute Killer's Blade. This is from the Assassination skill line. This is the Stamina Morph. It does do increased damage when your enemy is below 25% health, and it also gives you a nice heal. You can see this scales with max health, so it can be very strong on this setup. Second ability, Blood Craze from the dual wield skill line. This is the second skill here, and Blood Craze is the healing morph. This heals us as well. So this is healing us while it's doing damage for 10 seconds. Really nice option, both for damage and survivability. Third ability, Sap Essence. This is our first magicka skill. Comes from the Siphoning skill line right here. Last ability here. And this is one of the Nightblade's best AoE abilities, honestly. It does very good magic damage. It also gives us our Major Brutality and Major Sorcery buff. Perfect for a hybrid setup. And it also heals us. Gives us lots of healing. The more enemies we hit, the more health we get back. So this is going to be ideal for facing multiple enemies, add pulls, clearing your way through dungeons. But also remember to use this at least once every 20 seconds, even in a single target fight, a boss fight or something like that. So you maintain that Major Brutality and Major Sorcery. That's really important on this setup. Next, we have our single target spammable. It's going to be another stamina skill from the Shadow skill line, Surprise Attack. This does great damage. It can also proc off balance. It gives us some great passives from the Shadow skill line as well, and it's fairly low cost spammable ability. So I think it's ideal for this setup. And our last skill here is sort of like a flex spot, I would say. There's lots of different things you can run here. Deadly Cloak from the dual wield skill line is going to be quite nice. That's the second to last ability here. Quite nice because it does do AoE damage over time. It also gives you Major Evasion, so that reduces your damage taken from AoE attacks by 20%. So in most cases, this is going to be very good. Now, there's lots of other things you can put here as well. If you don't need the extra protection so much, if you want more mobility, I like Lotus Fan from the Assassination skill line. That's kind of the Nightblade gap closer. It's also AoE. It does AoE splash damage. It also does minor vulnerability. This is going to be great for clearing through like public dungeons, very easy content. I will slot Lotus Fan there, just a fun ability. You can also do an extra heal. An extra heal, for example, would be something like Swallow Soul. Now, this is a spammable as well. You can use this for your main spammable, but it also heals you over a 10-second duration. So you can combine Swallow Soul, hit that once every 10 seconds, and then do Surprise Attack as your main spammable. Having both of these together, pretty nice option there as well. But for now, for most cases, we'll keep Deadly Cloak there. And then the ultimate here, Soul Harvest from the Assassination skill line. Now, you can choose either morph here. They'll do similar damage. The reason why I like Soul Harvest, though, is for the extra ultimate generation, especially if we're making our way through a dungeon solo. We want as much ultimate as possible. Every time you get a kill with Soul Harvest on your front bar, 10 extra ultimate. That's in addition to all the extra ultimate we're going to have generated by using potions on the Nightblade. So this is very nice as a front bar option. Low cost, you can see, so that means we'll have a pretty high uptime on Balorg as well. Let's talk about the back bar, which is our Destruction Staff. Starting with Blockade of Fire. This is from the Destruction Staff skill line. This is essential, you guys. You need either a back bar staff or a back bar bow, especially on the hybrid build. Again, because of that infused glyph, this is what maintains the proc for you. Even if you're on your front bar, as long as you have this down on the ground and enemies are being damaged by it, even on my front bar, it's going to proc that extra weapon and spell damage. Very, very useful, especially on the hybrid build. Then we have another Destruction Staff ability, Elemental Drain. Very important and actually more powerful now in the Markarth DLC. Markarth has been a good update for hybrids, you guys, and a lot of that has to do with resistance debuff skills in ESO. Most of those are now converted over to Major Breach, which you can see Elemental Drain is also Major Breach. But what this does now is it debuffs both physical and spell resistance, both together And they have increased debuffs as well, almost 6,000 physical and spell resistance reduction there on your targets. It is single target, so I will, mostly just apply this to a boss or like a larger enemy in a group. It does give me minor magicka steal as well. Some extra magicka sustain is not bad. But yes, run this. It's a very strong option, especially in single target fights. And then Dark Shade from the Shadow skill line. That's our last ability here. This does AoE magic damage, and it also does AoE minor maim. Now, this did get a significant nerf in the Markarth DLC. It used to be 15% damage reduction. Now it's only 5%. So you can slot other things here. But keep in mind, we do want shadow abilities casted as much as possible for our shadow passives. So something else you could do here, more magic damage, something like Twisting Path. That'd be a nice option there as well. And then our last 2 buffs here from the Assassination skill line, we have Merciless Resolve. This is our Magicka morph. I chose this versus the Stamina morph because of the bigger heal. This ends up being a very nice burst heal on your back bar when you need it. You can also save up those stacks for increased, crit healing and crit damage, though our crit really isn't that high on this build. So usually I will use this as soon as I have the 5 stacks. I'll fire it off for the extra damage and the extra heal. We also get some important passives from having that on the back bar. And then Leeching Strikes. This is the Stamina morph from the Siphoning skill line. Second to last ability here. This is our Stamina Sustain. We have Minor Magicka Steal from Elemental Drain. And this is a very similar buff for Stamina on the Nightblade. So light and heavy attacks heal you. They also give you Stamina back. Really, really good buff. Make sure you keep that up. And then the back bar ultimate, you do have some options here. Soul Tether is a nice AoE stun and burst heal. I do like this just for clearing through dungeons and such. But you could really put anything here. You could put, for example, another great option would be the Destruction Staff Ultimate Elemental Rage. That's going to be a great option to start a fight, to kill off some enemy adds very quickly. That's what I would recommend there. All right, let's talk about the rotation here on the back bar. Remember, back bar is the only place you want to use a potion. That's about the only thing you got to watch out for this build. So go ahead and hit your back bar buffs, including your Shade. Put Elemental Drain on the boss. Put down your wall, and then that's when you use the potion. Front bar, we got Rending Slashes, Sap Essence, Deadly Cloak, and then about 3 surprise attacks. Bar swap back. Your bow should be ready. Go ahead and fire that off. Switch back to the front bar. Same thing. Rending Slashes. Keep up Deadly Cloak. Now my ultimate's ready, so I'll go ahead and pop that. Follow that up with my surprise attacks. And then rebuff on the back bar. You can see my potion's ready. All my buffs need to be reapplied. Sap Essence. Keep up our damage. And surprise attack. About 3 or 4 of those in a row. You can see my ultimate's up again already. That's really good for the extra damage on Balorg. Go ahead and bar swap back, rebuff, Shade, Potion. Got that off balance proc. All right. Ultimate's back already. Let's go ahead and use that. Getting close to execute range here. Let me make sure my Shade is up. Now, if you proc the off balance, remember you can heavy attacks for some extra stamina sustain. That's always nice. Okay, let me rebuff, and then we're ready for execute. My potion's up, so I'm going to swap back here. There we go. Make sure we get that 20 seconds of Clever Alchemist. Really good damage there. All right, and there it is. Now, as far as passives, what do you want for the hybrid Nightblade setup? Well, let's take a look here, starting in the class passives. Assassination, most of these are very good. Master Assassin does give you extra penetration if you're flanking. Then Executioner is actually amazing now. It gives you both Magicka and Stamina. This did get buffed in the Markarth DLC. 1,000 for each resource every 2 seconds. Yeah, that's pretty good for sustain on a hybrid setup. Pressure Points does give you weapon and spell critical. Very good passive there. And then Hemorrhage we do increase our critical damage by 10%. So all of these, definitely get those. Under the Shadow skill line, these are pretty important as well. You get extra recovery for health, stamina, and magicka. Make sure you put 2 points here. Shadow Barrier, this does give us our major resolve resistance buff. So about 6,000 physical and spell resistance every time we use a shadow ability. That's why we have one on the front bar. We even have one on the back bar to keep this up at all times. Dark Vigor, we get extra health. And then Dark Veil increases the duration of our shade. So yes, all of these definitely worth the 2 points. And then Siphoning is actually good as well for the hybrid. We talked about the name of this build, Catalyst, comes from this passive. After drinking a potion, you gain 20 ultimate. Remember, we are using a potion about every 21 seconds, so this gives a lot of ultimate to the build overall. Magicka Flood does give you 8% max magicka, which basically any extra stats you can get on the hybrid are important. This is why you need a siphoning skill on your front bar, Sap Essence, for example, and then a siphoning ability on your back bar, either the Soul Tether Ultimate or, Leeching Strike, something like that. That way you get the 8% max magicka on both bars. Really important. Soul Siphoner, you do get some increased healing done. That's not bad. And then Transfer, you get even more ultimate when using those siphoning abilities. So, yep, every single Nightblade passive we want, as well as your dual wield passives. These are very good. Pick up all of these as well. I just wanted to mention Twin Blade and Blunt, why swords are better for hybrids. You can see there each sword increases your damage done by 3%. That applies both to magic-based damage and stamina. All of our skills hit basically 6% harder due to running 2 swords. Destruction Staff passives, you can pick up all of these as well. Those are worth 2 points also. Heavy armor passives, remember this is a 5 heavy build. I would recommend all of these. And then in terms of guild skills, really not much being used on this except for Undaunted. If you do have Undaunted maxed out on your character, why not put 2 points here? You can see running 5 heavy, 1 medium, 1 light. We get 6% extra max stats. That's actually really good. And then, of course, you want all of your racial skills maxed out. What else in terms of champion points? In the green tree, 31 into Warlord, 100 into Arcanist and Mooncalf. This is going to buff all of our recovery, as well as 32 into Healthy for the health recovery. A little bit extra into Tenacity, 7 there. In the blue tree, 32 into Blessed for the increased healing, 56 Elemental Expert. 2 leftover Spell Erosion. We got 61 Master at Arms, 61 Thaumaturge, 2 into Piercing, 56 into Mighty. Then in the red tree, 81 into Ironclad, 56 into Hardy and Elemental Defender, 40 into Thick Skinned, and 37 into Quick Recovery. Yeah, I think that's about it. If you're interested in the outfit style, this is a combination of armor styles as far as the helmet goes. Pyandonian, I think I'm saying that right. That's the medium armor style there. And then everything else on the body, we're using heavy buoyant armature. That's from Vardenfell. So we're using that on the chest, legs, feet, hands, and waist. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up the hybrid solo Nightblade setup, the Catalyst, now updated for the Markarth DLC. I hope you guys liked this one. If you did, of course, don't forget to crush that like button. And if you're new around here, make sure you're subscribed for many more ESO build videos just like this one in the future. Of course, I am on social media, and I do have my own website with written versions of builds. If you'd like to check out either of those, links will be down in the description below. For the first time ever, we're also rolling out members-only content. If you'd like more information on that, just click on the join button. As always, thank you all again for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.